even though we've seen the Broncos and Bo Nix come back in the fourth quarter, but that's been in the regular season. This is the postseason. It is different. It's a different animal. It's a different beast. It's a different mindset.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos and Bourbon. I am your host, Phil Milani. Very excited for a playoff version of Broncos and Bourbon as Nick Ferguson, the former Broncos safety and current radio host here in Denver, joins the program. Nick, obviously a very good friend of the program. He's been on a few times, and I just felt like he has the insight here that would be really valuable this week as the Broncos get set to host the Buffalo Bills. One thing I appreciate about Nick is that he keeps it very real. Like, he's honest. He gives his opinion that, like, based off of what he sees, okay? Not just what fans want to hear. And I think that you'll find that all throughout this conversation here is that Nick, based off of what he's seeing, he's going to break it down. And we get into so many different storylines in this matchup. We talk about, hey, what's the mindset for this Broncos team here after a little bit of a layoff, right? Like, they had the bye week in the wild card round. And then before that, facing two, the Chiefs and the Chargers, facing two teams playing primarily backups in those games. How is that going to affect the team heading into this game? The importance of a fast start, keeping the fans involved. The stadium's going to be electric. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere. How important is a fast start for this team? We'll talk about Bo Nix versus Josh Allen, how that matchup could play out. And then, how do the Broncos on both sides of the ball try to attack this team? How do you try to slow down the top rushing attack in the league with James Cook and what Josh Allen likes to do, running the ball with his legs? Just the fact that this is a banged up Buffalo team that doesn't really have that number one star wideout. How is that going to affect what the Broncos defense likes to do? And then on the other side, how can the Broncos offense put up enough points going up against the Bills here? And what's it going to take to be committed to the run? How is Sean Payton going to really stay with the ground attack against the Bills defense that's just not been very good at stopping the run this year? So we get into a lot of different things, and I think that you'll really enjoy this conversation. And then on the back end here, I'll give you my pick, my take on this, and then I also have a bourbon review for you on the other side. So if you enjoy this conversation and you like these Broncos breakdowns every single week, please like and subscribe as we continue to grow the channel here. But enough of me here. Let's get to my conversation with Nick Ferguson. Nick, thank you for coming on the program again, man. It's always good to catch up, and particularly when we're talking about some playoff football. How you been, man?
Good. It is a playoff time in a Mile High City, so how could one feel bad at all?
Exactly. How you feeling about this game? We're just we're getting a couple days closer here, and it's been a long time since there was a playoff game played here in Denver. How you feeling?
Well, I'm happy, Phil, that the Broncos are 14-3, and they got that first round bye, which was so important because the reason you want that first round bye, it allows coaches to kind of do a reevaluation of the season thus far and look at plays, both positive and negative. It allows the players to heal up and get healthy. Players who may not have figured that they would play in this game, they now have an opportunity to play in this game. But more importantly, you don't lose, right? I mean, automatically I was like, oh, it's Victory Monday for the Denver Broncos because they didn't lose, and that's the best part. And sometimes you worry as a coach whether your players are going to take advantage of that time off by, allowing their bodies to heal, but also getting back to the basics, studying themselves. And we know sports, no matter what professional sport we're talking about, it's a game of momentum, right? So that's going to be one of those things to see how the Broncos on both sides of the ball come out Saturday against this Buffalo team, even though Buffalo is on a short week. They're going to lose a day as far as travel time and healing up. But they have the momentum. They just beat Jacksonville, a team that just beat the Denver Broncos a couple of weeks back. So we'll have to see, how this team kind of comes out on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the start of the game, particularly how important that is for the Broncos to get off to a good start. But first, with regard to the start of the game, look, that stadium is going to be hopping. The fans are going to be going. I think that there's going to be some nerves. And for the Broncos, you talk about momentum. How big of a deal is it, Nick, that look, they really haven't played a real football game in almost a month here because they faced the Chiefs backups on Christmas night. The next week they played the backups against the Chargers. They had the bye week. It's almost been a month since that game against Jacksonville when you're going up against another team's starters and it's on. How big of a deal is that for you, Nick?
That's huge. But I have to back it for a second. Everything
Okay.
that you're saying is absolutely true. And I've said it myself, only to get negative criticism saying, okay, well, Nick, you're not really rallying for the Denver Broncos by pointing out all of these things. And the only thing that matters is that the team wins. Yes, it is true. Only thing that matters is that the team wins, but these are actual facts that are proven. It's not something that's arbitrary. It is real. When we look at the last team that you played that was at full strength, you would have to go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars game, right? And I know some fans don't want to look at some of the things that you just brought up because it's just like, well, no, you're taking us off the actual idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm like, well, two things can be true at the same time. This is why starting the game fast is going to be so important. And it's something that we haven't really seen this Broncos team actually do, right? We've seen them take the opening drive and move the ball down the field in a very efficient way, only to get in the end zone and come away with no points, right? You cannot do that against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills and hope to win this game. Every opportunity that the Broncos have to move the ball down the field, they need to do it. And they need to punch it in and score, where now they're putting more pressure on the Buffalo Bills. And Sean Payton said it earlier this week, and this is just me paraphrasing. He did it during the Packers game, and he did it the same during the game against the Jaguars, kind of putting fillers out there, telling fans to yell, to scream. When the Bills are in the huddle, he wants them to scream the loudest. And the reason why, and I totally get it, because he wants to see Josh Allen with his hands on his ears like freaking earmuffs as he tries to hear the play calls that are coming in. Because if the players can't get the calls, that is going to slow them down as far as, the rhythm of the offense. Because guess what? There's a clock that's running. So if he gets to the line of scrimmage and he has very little time to check his offensive sets and go through progressions, advantage goes to the Denver Broncos. But the offense will need to start fast, and they will need to finish inside the end zone.
Yeah, that's a smart crowd there at Mile High. Like they know when to cheer. Like they've been through the Peyton Manning years on when to be quiet. Now they're getting an education on when to cheer. So they got it. They got it. I think. I'm curious. How do you think that the feel is around this game? Like, does the fact that they played in the playoffs last year matter? Like, is this sort of like a revenge game, Nick, or was last year with the Broncos just happy to be there? They weren't really thinking they were going to go to Buffalo and get that win? Or do you say, like, no, this team beat the Broncos last year, not just beat them, but they beat them bad. And now it's the Broncos trying to get a little revenge. Like, what do you think the feel is around that?
Both of those things are absolutely true. From Sean McDormand and the Buffalo Bills fans, they're thinking, okay, well, we beat this team already, right? We beat them 31-7. Yeah, it was on our home turf. Now we're going to their living room, and we're going to have to try to get inside their kitchen. And what I mean, the kitchen meaning the end zone. And for Sean Payton and the Broncos, they're thinking, okay, well, we went to Buffalo. We were not a mainstay in the playoffs. We finally get to the playoffs. And yes, we had that first opening explosive touchdown with Troy Franklin, and then it seemed like everything fell apart. So we owe them, but this time we get them in our house, right? And now we're trying to get in their kitchen, right? That's going to be the mentality. But here's what I'll tell you, Phil. When we look at this, there's so many storylines in this particular game, it's not even funny. Because you have Sean Payton chasing NFL history, trying to do something that no coach in NFL history has ever done, and that's winning the Super Bowl with two different teams. When you shift over to the Buffalo Bills side, you have Sean McDermott, who is trying to erase all the bad taste in his mouth, losing to, Patrick Mahomes so many times and having to watch the Chiefs celebrate. Now he's knocking on the doorstep of making his own history that Marv Levy couldn't do when he was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And oh, by the way, the biggest elephant in the room, Josh Allen. Josh Allen has surpassed so many things and doubters who said what he couldn't do. This is a former guy who had, no offers when it came to college football, right? So he had to go to Wyoming. And oh, by the way, the Broncos overlooked him coming out of the draft. So you have the Broncos saying, okay, well, we want revenge. We want revenge from what happened in Buffalo. And Josh Allen is saying, I want revenge because you guys overlooked me. So we have so many storylines going into this game. And then, Josh Allen is on this crusade. He's on this crusade to do something that his predecessor, Jim Kelly, couldn't do in 4 tries. And if he does that, he becomes an official god in Buffalo. Yep. So because here's what happens. If Josh Allen pulls it off, he becomes to Buffalo what John Elway here is to the Broncos fans.
Totally. It's interesting, like so many teams like have different perspectives here. Like the Broncos, they're like, hey, we're the number 1 seed. The path is, setting up the playoffs have to come through Denver. This is the Broncos' chance. But I think from the Buffalo side, they're thinking, hey, there's no Patrick Mahomes this year. There's no Lamar Jackson this year. The path is clear for Buffalo to go. And, it's weird that like so many people think that Buffalo didn't have that great of a season. They were still 12-5, Nick. Like that's still a great year. They just happened to not win their division. They weren't maybe quite as good as they've been in years past, but this is still a really good football team.
Yeah, it is. And I would have people to remember in a couple of those games, who do they play against? The New England Patriots. Who are the New England Patriots? There's the number 2 seed in the AFC. So we're not talking about the Buffalo Bills just kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but this also proves that there's a lot of parity in the NFL. And this is probably what gives Broncos fans that confidence that they can go all the way to Levi Stadium and pull off what 2015 team did with Peyton Manning winning a Super Bowl, because they're saying, well, right now, there are no dominant teams in the NFL. Right? And you can say that, and that is absolutely true. You just have to make sure that team that you're playing against, they don't dominate you on a day in the game that you want to make sure that you move forward. So what we've seen of this Buffalo Bills team, we can't just kind of dismiss and just throw it in the ether. We've watched them play against the New England Patriots and show that they can have comebacks. We've seen them play in tight games. They play in a tight game against Philadelphia. At home, they lost, but they were right there knocking on the doorstep with time expiring, and the ball was in Josh Allen's hands, but he just couldn't make the throw. So when we look at this game and what it could be on Saturday, this could be a low-scoring game. This could be a high-scoring game, but the idea is that we've seen the Broncos in the fourth quarter have comebacks. We've also seen the Buffalo Bills in the fourth quarter have comebacks. So it could come down, Phil, to what it was last week when the Bills faced the Jags. Who has the ball last, and what can you do with it in critical moments?
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence threw that interception, and that was game over there after Josh had led the Bills down and had that insane QB sneak all the way to the goal line. So, yeah, it does seem like this game, it could be played in so many different ways, Nick. What do you think? Like, we've heard Sean Payton say this, like, in his halftime interviews with the broadcast crew, right? Like, hey, this game is being played how we want it to be played. How do you think the Broncos want this game? Like, do they want a low-scoring game that at the end of the game, they put the ball in Bo's hands and say, just do what you've done all year? Or, do they want a high-scoring game? Like, what kind of a matchup favors the Broncos in this one?
A low-scoring matchup, right? And even with saying that, you still have that guy on the opposite side of the field who can make plays when games are tight. The Broncos don't want to get into somewhat of a fist fight with the Buffalo Bills and turn it into a high-scoring game because, like you said, when you open up, when you look at the past couple of games, they haven't been able to do that. When you go back, I'll go all the way back, and let's just say the Green Bay Packers game. That was the game for me, Phil, where I say, well, the Broncos are somewhat come of age, and they scored points against another elite team. And oh, by the way, the Broncos had 2 interceptions in that game. When coming into that Green Bay Packers game, they didn't have a lot. So those 2 interceptions, one by Riley Moss, the other by Pat Surtain, which to me broke the game open, gave the Broncos offense an opportunity. Then you fast forward to the Jacksonville Jaguars game. The Broncos offense only scored 20 points. You go forward to the Kansas City game, the Thursday night game, only 20 points. Then you get to the Chargers game, 19 points, but credit that to Will Lutz and Jaquan McMillan because the offense scored no points. So this is why the Broncos, they don't want to get into that much of a fist fight and have it a high-scoring game because I don't know if they feel confident that they can win that type of game. A close game, they're like, yes, because we're right there. We're always in it. And as I've said all season long, you're hoping Vance Joseph and the MacGyver defense comes up with some type of play, a sack force fumble, a tip pass into someone's hands, or someone's punching the ball out. That is the style of football that the Broncos have played all season long because we've seen this offense struggle, but we also have seen the defense throw on a cape and come to the rescue.
Yeah, they seem to have done that all year long where they make a huge play. You know, you think about the Washington game, like there's just so many times where the defense has made that play and they win the game. And I think there's only 2 games this year the Broncos have won where they've scored more than 20 points. I think that's true. And so, yeah, I think a low-scoring game is where you want to be. Nick, let's talk about like sort of the matchup everybody wants to talk about. Is this Bills offense, Josh Allen versus this Broncos defense? You know, it's their strength versus the Broncos' strength. How do you see that matchup playing out? Because like they like to run the ball. They've got the number 1 rushing attack with James Cook there. This Broncos team likes to get after the quarterback, the number 1 sacking team in the NFL. How do you see in X's and O's, how do you see that matchup playing out?
This is going to be a tough matchup because I know everyone is saying, okay, well, the Bills had a lot of wide receivers to go down. Gabe Davis went down in the Jacksonville game, and it's just like, well, it's a mass unit at the receiver position. I say, well, when you think about what Joe Brady and the Buffalo Bills still have, they have 2 amazing tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. So if you want to turn it into a game where you get bigger bodies on the field, they are capable of actually doing that, and that could stretch the Broncos defense a little thin because when you get into those 2 tight end sets, usually that means that the Broncos want to be more in their base coverage. Now, they can say, well, hey, we're going to put Surtain on one of these guys and bring in Jahdae Barron. Hey, fine, but the Bills are saying, well, the advantage goes to us. We are the number 1 rushing team in the league, both with our quarterback and our running back. And oh, by the way, you put bigger bodies in the box, we can block them. You put smaller bodies in the box, we can block them. And oh, by the way, we can actually throw passes off of play action, off of those same looks. And this is where communication is going to be important. And I applaud Sean Payton and all the players for talking about having the volume be really loud in the stadium. And we've seen the volume can be, but also it produces issues for the defense as well. If there's 1 or 2 guys who are unsure about the defensive check and they didn't hear the communication, that crowd noise can definitely affect the players on the defensive side of the ball. I know this because I played in that stadium. And I know, yeah, Phil, how loud it can be. Like, I can be standing this close to you, and you won't hear a single word that I am saying. So the defensive players is going to be all important that they make sure they kind of weed out anything that could be a problem from a communication standpoint. But this is what makes this game great, the chess match. Who's going to do what? How will the Broncos defense counteract what the Bills are going to do, and then how the Bills offensively counteract what the Broncos defense is going to throw at them, because you know that edge pressure is coming. Nick Bonito is coming. Jonathan Cooper is coming, because these guys hadn't really had a lot of sacks, these 2 guys, in a couple of games. So they're going to try to get after Josh Allen. But here's the most important thing when it comes to rushing a mobile quarterback. You got to make sure you rush with integrity and discipline, because if you get too far up the field and get washed by the tackles, he can take it and run it, right? And he 6'5", 237, and
He's a
he's a big
horse.
quarterback.
He's a horse running down that field.
Yeah, yeah. So the other part about it is that you got to be careful too, because I can tell you as a defensive guy, when those quarterbacks start running and knowing as though we don't always get a chance to hit them, right? And you have to make sure that you avoid hitting the quarterback late, right? Because this is going to be one of those games where the officials are going to be looking, right? Because we're talking about Josh Allen, the reigning MVP. Now, will they give him the same Patrick Mahomes treatment? Probably not. But they're definitely going to look to protect him, so no dumb penalties.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, like, in a way, this Bills offense is like set up to go against a team like the Broncos, because rushing him is difficult, like you mentioned there, and plus when you get to him, trying to bring him down is hard. Even though he's been sacked 40, he was sacked 40 times in the regular season. That was the seventh worst, 40 sacks there. But I do feel like bringing him down is hard, and then he can make those back-breaking plays with his legs. And then, Nick, you tell me, like, the fact that they don't have a number one wideout who's like their go-to guy that you can just put Pat on. How does that affect how the Broncos like to play defense? Because, in most situations, if a team has that number one guy, you could put Pat on him and say, okay, that guy's taken care of. The Bills don't really have that. They spread the ball around to so many guys.
And that is the key to their offense. I know everyone is talking about, well, they don't have a number one guy. Their receivers are hurt. Well, Josh Allen has been through this before. This is not some kind of rediscovery of the offense. So he's been dealing with this all season long, or dare I say, for the past 3 seasons. But they found ways to make plays, even though they have guys who are not household names. They have guys who are not considered to be wide receiver number one. You have a bunch of guys who are just going out making plays. That's what this unit does. They just go out and make plays. This wide receiver unit, if I can categorize them in a particular way, no disrespect, but they are blue-collar wide receivers. They're going to do whatever it takes to win football games, right? And they've done it. Think about what we saw last year when these two teams played. Did they have any household names then? No, they didn't. But they found ways collectively to make plays. And here's the reason why, Phil. Each one of those guys, they know their limitations, right? And they know how to play within the confinement of the system, right? They have a mobile quarterback. All you have to do is find a way to get open, right? Find a way to get open, and he's going to find you. That is the level of progression the Broncos offense and receivers need to get to. You know you have a mobile quarterback in Bo Nix. If your route says, I have to run a 12-yard in route, right? And that's a dig route. Well, I'm going to run that dig route. Well, when I look back, when the ball is not thrown to me, my quarterback is running. Guess what I should do? Uncover and get open. How about that, right? Now, if you're telling me on Saturday, over this past couple of weeks the Broncos have been off, they resolved that issue, and now that's a go-to for them, that gives them an opportunity, because when you look at the Bills, they have the number one passing defense in the league, right? When it comes to the run, not so much.
Not so much,
When it comes to the pass, yes, they've done a great job. And Tre'Davious White, having him back in that secondary has helped them out tremendously, because he made two game-deciding plays in that game against Jacksonville. One ended up in an interception that saved the game for the Bills.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The Broncos offense versus this Bills defense. Obviously, they don't have a great running defense, to stop the rushing attack. Do you think that the Broncos can stay committed enough to running the football against this team? Versus, I know that they like to mix things up and get creative with the play calls and let Bo do his thing. But do you think they can stay committed to a running game with Bo using his legs too, and RJ Harvey, enough to make a real impact in this game?
Do I have to bet my life on this?
A playoff game.
Because if I have to bet my life on it, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And once again, it's not no disrespect, but from what I've seen all season long, that has been the toughest thing for the Broncos to do, is to stay committed to the run. We've seen different players when J.K. Dobbins was playing. We've seen him kind of find some explosive runs. We've seen Jaleel McLaughlin as of late, which we definitely have to talk about that. But then we've seen R.J. Harvey. But we've also seen those guys kind of taking off the script. And what I mean by that is maybe the swapping of running backs breaks up the rhythm, or running the ball, or the way that you were running the ball, you just stopped, right? We've seen that all season long, and we've seen, Coach Payton ask this after the game in frustration, but we also have seen Coach Payton ask this heading into halftime. What is it that you need to do coming out of the half to help your team? Well, we need to run the ball. Okay, it sounds very simple, doesn't it? Right? We've seen that long sheet that he has, and it has to have run plays on it, but it just seemed for some reason the Broncos just get away from it. And I know this, and I always go back to what I know as a former player. When a team is running the ball against you, whether they're having success, whether it's 1.5 yards field, or they're busting explosive runs, and that's a 6-yard run, it keeps the defense honest because we don't know what you're going to do. We have no idea. And the only way to do that, you have to put Bo under center. Now, I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if he doesn't play well from under the center. I don't know if the coaches just have a lack of confidence, but they don't do it that often. They'll come out in the opening drive, a couple of plays, putting Bo on the center, trying to set it up, and then eventually go away from it, right? In every play that's run, it is set up to run something else. But if you get away from the run, that's going to be problematic because remember what I said. Now, this can change in a game due to injuries or bad execution, but right now, the Buffalo Bills are the number one passing defense in the NFL. And if you cannot run the ball, it's going to make you one-dimensional. And it's also going to make your quarterback, number 10, be your leading rusher, and you don't want that.
Yeah, and that's another reason why a fast start I think is important, because game condition too, like what the score is, that can affect whether you stay committed to running that football. But yeah, it's going to be super important. And how much of a factor do you think is like playoff experience, Nick? Because this is just Bo's second game. The Bills, like we've talked about, have gone through this so many times. But like just knowing like how to handle situations and being calm and stuff like. Does playoff experience come into this too?
Yeah, it definitely matters. And the fact that you're saying that Bo is going into his second year, he's experienced playoffs in his first season, which is really rare for quarterbacks to get that type of experience. So he's gone through it. So the nervous jitters are no longer there for him. And Josh Allen, he's been here before in a lot of key games. But here's where it changed just ever so slightly for Bo Nix. He has that experience, but not in this particular magnitude, not with as much on the line. You have the number one seed throughout the playoffs. All you have to do is win 3 games, and the first game starts with winning the game on Saturday. So now you have all of that in front of you, Super Bowl aspirations, even though I know Sean Payton said coming into this process, we're not thinking about it. We don't want to talk about it. You may not want to talk about it, but I can tell you as a former player, you thinking about it. Absolutely. Because if you're not thinking about it, guess who's thinking about it? People in your family, right? They're thinking about it. They're asking you questions. Hey, man, what happens if you go to the Super Bowl? Man, this could be awesome, man. You go to the Super Bowl in your second year. So now you're being flooded and bombarded with those types of questions. And you are human. So there is going to be an element of pressure, associated with winning this game, and especially winning the game on your home field. There's pressure all around, but it is which team that can handle, 1, the initial surge, 2, the team that can overcome those adversities and push through. That's how you win these types of games. And the team that can't do either of the two, that usually is a team that walks away with their head down, driving in the car, crying, and you don't want to be crying going home. If it's crying, you want it feel to be tears of joy. Tears of joy. You want tears of joy.
Nick, you've been in the playoffs a bunch of times. I think you played in 6 playoff games. What is different about the playoffs? Because it does feel like things go up a notch from the regular season. Like, just describe like the mindset, the attitude, knowing that it's do or die. You're sitting in that locker room. Like, take us inside a player's mindset here, getting ready for a game like this.
Well, once again, you think about the pressure element of it because whether people want to be honest about it and say, well, oh, it's just another game. Yeah, it is another game, but it's a win and go home game, right? And you want to survive in advance. So you're thinking about that, right? And you're saying, okay, well, I need to make all the plays that I've made during the season. This is a different team. How do we match up? Who am I guarding? And in my case, as a safety, well, who's the running back on that side? Is he just a dude or he is a dude? And there's a totally difference between those two guys. And what do I need to do to make sure that at the end of the game, I've given my team an opportunity to win? And the game starts out, where it's 0-0. But then when you walk in at halftime, that's when things start, the four walls start closing in, right? Because either you're ahead or you're behind. And if you're behind, you're thinking about how many points are we behind? Can we catch up? Can we afford to allow that team that may have the opening kickoff to drive down the field and score, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal? These are the things that you are thinking about. Now, if you are ahead, that mentality is entirely different. Now you're thinking, how can we sustain and hold on to this league? We got to fight, we have to claw, we have to do whatever it is. If we're only up by 3 and the game ends and we win by 3, hey man, that's the only thing that matters. We have to make sure that we stay engaged in the game. We can't worry about the crowd cheering and doing all that. No, we cannot celebrate till the job is done. Like I said, you're going to be on either side. Either you're going to be crying because you lost the game, or you're going to be crying because, hey, those are tears of joy. So you have to make sure mentally you stay locked in. You have to make sure every player stays locked in. But more importantly, you have to make sure you're doing what you need to do on the field, and you can't lose the game. You don't want to lose the game because guess what? There was a piling on the quarterback because maybe Malcolm Roach sacked Josh Allen and the ref threw a flag that extended the drive. Or if you're Riley Moss, you want to make sure that there's no pass interference calls. You want to make sure if you're Evan Ingram or Cortland Sutton that you actually catch the ball, you look it in, you see it in, you tuck it, and then you get upfield because you don't want to drop the pass. If you're anyone on the offensive line, you don't want to miss your block. You don't want to have a critical hole in a critical situation to kind of kill the momentum of your drive. And I said all that, say not to call out players specifically, but to give you an idea of all the things that we've seen happen all season long that either hurt the team or the team was able to power through. All of those things are real facts that could happen and take place in this game.
Yeah, like you're feeling the pressure to like almost play a perfect game and like take your game up a notch. But, it's almost like maybe like how do teams respond after a mistake or something that doesn't go in their favor? That's almost just as important, right? Like, hey, we withstood the surge there or the mistake or whatever it is. Now let's get back on track. Let's bounce back here. Those moments, it feels like in playoff games, like there's so many like critical moments that like it goes one way or the other, and then that ends up being the who wins the game.
Yeah, it does, man. And the one thing that I'll tell you to pay attention to, body language. Body language is going to tell you everything. If you can't be on the sideline or in the huddle hearing what's going on, as the camera pans to the sideline, look at the body language. Look at the players, look at the coaches. That's going to be a litmus test of how the game is going for either team, right? Regardless of what the score is, look at the body language. Is it going to be a situation where guys are upright, and their chests are out? That's telling you that's a confident group. But if you see slumped shoulders and head down, that tells you, oh, one of these teams are in trouble and they're looking for ways to dig themselves out.
Yeah. Okay, so just a couple more for you here. If this game gets late and it's tight, we talked about this situation earlier here. The fact that the Broncos have been in a lot of these fourth quarter comebacks, late game kind of situations, Or do you trust Bo in that situation? Or, hey, Josh Allen has been in a lot of these big games, big moments in the playoffs, dueling Patrick Mahomes, dueling Lamar Jackson. In those situations, which quarterback would you rather put your faith in there? Like, I know that that's kind of crazy just because Josh is the reigning MVP and everything, but that could be the situation in this game, Nick. Like, where would your confidence lie?
I mean, my confidence would lie in Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And simply because he's done it and he's been in a lot of these big games. And it's no disrespect to Bo. Bo eventually get to that point. And you only get to that point by playing in these types of games over and over and over again. And you go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars game. Well, when you look at the statistics, well, it wasn't a massive passing game for Josh Allen. No, he was efficient and he didn't make any mistakes. He rushed for 2 touchdowns and he threw for another, right? So that tells you when they get inside the red zone, hey, they're looking to put the ball in their best player's hand. And here's the biggest thing. He knows what to do with it. He's making great decisions. So watching this, there might be a Broncos fan that's upset with me, but I would tell them, tell me something different. Tell me something different. Right now, the outcome could be totally different based on the defense and playing here at home. But on the surface, yeah, you have to lean heavily towards Josh Allen because he's played in more games like this, even though we've seen the Broncos and Bo Nix come back in the fourth quarter, but that's been in the regular season. This is the postseason. It is different. It's a different animal. It's a different beast. It's a different mindset, right? So I have to go with the guy who's been there a lot. And once again, if someone is upset with me, you'll get over it.
Yeah. Hey, this is a Broncos podcast, but we like to keep it real and we got to keep it honest, and I think that that's just a fact. And I think when you look at this matchup, look, Bo probably has a better surrounding cast, especially with the Bills banged up. But when you just look at them head to head, Josh is that sort of that guy who can put on that cape and just go out there and be superheroes. So, I think for the Broncos, you got to consider that and just know, let's try not to get in that situation where it's late and you got to go back and forth between these two because Josh has been there and he's executed in these huge games. So, okay, last one for you, Nick. I'll put you on the spot. How do you think this one plays out?
Well, my heart tells me, hey, go with the Denver Broncos. But my mind tells me you got to go with the guy who has a lot of experience and he's made a lot of big plays in games like this. And, I mean, once again, like I said before, anyone can be upset with me, but tell me something different. Tell me something different. Now, obviously, the outcome could be swayed based on what the Broncos offense is able to do. If the Broncos offense is able to get out to a fast start, put 14 points on the board, show that there's a commitment to the run, and then you couple that with your defense helping out, now everything kind of swings. The pendulum it swings in your direction. If you can't do any of those things and you put the heavy onus on your defense to come up with turnovers, to stop Josh Allen, not once, twice, but the length of the game, and now they have to become their version of Superman in a sense, that's not a recipe for success. So not knowing how the Broncos are going to run the ball, can they stay committed, I have to go with the Bills. I have to. Now, if you told me coming into this game, the Broncos, even in the past 2 weeks, they were able to rush for 100 yards, right? And the bulk of that was the guy from the running back position, not the quarterback, I'll have a different outcome, right? What I'm telling you will be different because I haven't seen it. I can't go on something I haven't seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I just think that ever since that bye week, Nick, like this Broncos team has had a little bit of a different feel. I think that what we saw in that Washington game and what we've seen since then, these offenses are trying to do quick passes to negate the Broncos passing attack. They're trying to run the football. I think that that this Bills team is sort of built to do some of those things. And then I think on the other side of the ball, like the offense just hasn't had that dominating performance in a long time. That Packers game feels like a long time ago. That Cowboys feels like a long time ago. And so, yeah. And I think the one thing that fans like to do is make comparisons to that Super Bowl 50 team. And if you think about that playoff run, like against the Patriots, against the Panthers, they came out hot and they got early leads in those games, and that sort of dictated the rest of the way those games were played. The only game that really came down to the wire was that first one against the Steelers, and that was like a toss-up kind of game. And so, I think that I agree with you, Nick. Like this game could go in a lot of different directions. There's so many storylines, but if it plays out where Josh has got the ball in his hand late in the game, that's a bad recipe, I think. So. I think I'm there with you. So, yeah, man. So, but hey, it's the playoffs and it's exciting, huh? Like it's exciting that the Denver Broncos are hosting a game and that atmosphere is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing, regardless of the facts that, we laid out here, the Broncos have an opportunity to change all of that. And that's the best part as a player. You have an opportunity to change how people thought of you or think of you, all the mishaps and missteps leading up to this point. The only individual who can change that is the players and the coaches. And you have one game to prove it. That's it, 4 quarters. And after that, you put it in the book and you turn the page. And you hope that when you turn the page, you have the pen in your hand to write another chapter to your story. You don't want to turn the page and that's the end of the book. So at the end of the game, when the final second ticks off the clock, and the Broncos have won the game or lost the game as a player and as a coach, you have to look at it and say, well, did we do everything in that particular moment to win the game, right? And if you did everything correct, you win the game. If you don't, then you're talking about, well, what are we going to do when we come back to the playoffs in 2026? And that's not the conversation, Phil, you want to have with yourself.
Yeah, well put there, Nick. And I think that you're right. Like the players, they're going to decide this. The coaches are going to decide it, and we'll know. Like there's no more guessing. Like, hey, against the Chargers, they were like, oh, they're playing conservative, or they're holding back, or hey, they're doing just enough to win these games, and a win is a win, and all that. No, now it's time. It's all on the line. Put everything out there. Put your best foot forward, and we're going to know what this team's about. We're going to know come Saturday, Saturday afternoon, we're going to know what this Broncos team's about. So, hey, Nick, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight, man. You played in a lot of these big games. You took us into the mindset there. So I appreciate you. And it's always good to catch up with you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Phil. Enjoy the game.
My thanks to Nick Ferguson for coming on the program here and dropping a lot of knowledge. Really said some interesting things there that I think that we can sort of unpack a little bit. Obviously, he said he's taking the Bills, just heading into this one. But I think that he brought up a really good point is that, hey, Bo is going to play in a lot of these games. And someday we're going to be saying that Bo has a lot of the playoff experience. So I think that it's fair to give Josh Allen his due here just because he has been in a lot of these games, right? He's although last week was his first win on the road in the playoffs, it was a tremendous performance. And I think that he's just not going to be super rattled coming into Mile High, even though that atmosphere is going to be insane. I think that he's just had that experience, and I resaw the highlights of that 13-second game against the Chiefs and just how they went back and forth in that game. And it's insane. Obviously, this is not the same Buffalo team as those teams were. It's not even the same Buffalo team that beat the Broncos badly in the wild card game last year. This is a different Bills team, and they're banged up. And there is a path to victory here, I think, for the Broncos against this Bills team. And I just kind of wanted to talk about the two different ways I could see this game going. One is a Broncos win, one is a Bills win. And I'll just talk about that a little bit because I do think that in the playoffs, each game, Peyton Manning has said this many times, where each game sort of takes on its own story, right? It doesn't really matter what's all happened up to this point, right? Like every team who's playing right now thinks that they can win a Super Bowl, thinks that they're on a magical ride from this season. Every team has that perspective. We talked about it with Nick, where they feel like this is their year. Every team playing right now feels like that. And the Jags felt that last week, right? And it all came crashing down very quickly. And so every team feels like they're on this special run. And that's what makes these playoff games so amazing, is that it can all end in an instant. And each one of these games just has its own unique story of how it unfolds. And I think that for this Broncos team, the start is just going to be so huge, right? I do think there's going to be some jitters. You see that like in big games, right? Like Super Bowls, games like that, where there's just sort of like a little bit of tension there to start the game. I think for the Broncos, that is going to exist in this game. And what's going to be important is like not to let that linger too long, right? And hopefully there's a really good scripted plan for that first drive, and the Broncos are able to, even though they're feeling maybe a little tense, go out and have like a nice drive that leads to some points early, right? Like I think about that playoff or the Super Bowl game against the Panthers. Everybody thinks that game started with Von Miller's strip sack and the touchdown with Malik Jackson, but that game really started with the Broncos getting the ball first. They had a couple of nice plays. Owen Daniels had a nice catch, and it led to a Brandon McManus field goal and got the Broncos settled into that game. That's just so important. The week before that against the Patriots in that AFC Championship, they get Owen Daniels involved, a couple of touchdowns, just sets the storyline in a favorable position, right? And I think that that's going to be important in this one, because I think for the Broncos to win, they're going to have to stay committed to running the ball. And I think that is the formula. Start early, get the score in your favor early, even if it's just a field goal or whatever, and then just start that positive momentum going in that direction. And then I think once you get hit a couple of times, once you get going, then you feel more comfortable and you're in the game, and it just feels like a regular game. Because to me, there's stages of football games, right? There's the preseason. It goes up a notch to the regular season. You play all these regular season games, and then it goes up a notch in the playoffs. And then there's one more notch that it goes up in the Super Bowl. There's 4 stages, in my opinion. And I think that you've got to meet that energy each time you go up. And then once you've settled in, then it feels like a football game, and I just think that start is going to be so important for the Broncos, because I do think that Josh, the fact that they went on the road, beat a really good Jags team, like they're in a rhythm and in a routine, and that they're going to be ready to go early. So I think that start fast, and then play disciplined football on the defensive side. That means to me, staying in your lane when you're rushing Josh. Don't let him kill you with his runs, and try to make him throw the ball outside to these guys, and just make life a little bit difficult where it's not exactly what they want to do, right? Try to take away what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is get the ball to their tight ends, run the ball with James Cook, maybe hit a couple of deep balls to Brandon Cooks. That's sort of what the Bills are liking to do. Try to make that not possible, right? Avoid the big play. Don't let Josh get going with his legs. And I think that that's sort of, and obviously you got to try and stop the run, and you got to stay committed to stopping the run, because if all of those things are going, then it's going to be tough to slow this team down. So I think that the formula for the Broncos is keep this game to where the Broncos can win it 20-7, something like that, right? 20-14, where the Bills are having a tough time moving the ball. This is a low-scoring game, a couple of field goals here or there. Maybe you get a touchdown if you get some rhythm going. That's the key, I think, for a Broncos win. Start fast, play disciplined football. Don't turn the ball over. That's one thing that Trevor Lawrence, he turned the ball over last week, right? As great as he's been playing, a couple of interceptions in that game, and that really hurt Jacksonville. You can't make those costly mistakes against this team at this stage, it feels like. It feels like the Broncos need to play a really clean football game. They just don't have that explosive ability to overcome too many things that go against them. So clean football, fast start, make life difficult for Josh, and the Broncos get a win here. That's what I think. The flip side of that is I do think that Buffalo is matched up well here on paper for this Broncos defense. You can't just put a guy, you can't just put Pat on a guy and take away a huge part of their offense. They're not built like that. Stopping the run is going to be so important. We've seen teams have a little bit of success running the football against the Broncos, particularly if the Broncos are playing a little too aggressive, taking the wrong angles, and just not playing sound. And James Cook will do that. Josh Allen will certainly make you pay if you do let him run in the football. And so, and just that experience and the quick passes, you're going to see Josh really try to get the ball out of his hands fast. And he's capable of doing that. And that's going to be a big key in this game. Can the Broncos make him hold on to the football? Because then you're asking Josh to try and fit the ball into some tight windows. You're asking him to do a lot. That's how mistakes can happen. You know, he's not on the injury report, but you know that foot doesn't feel great. His knee kind of hyperextended a little last week. He says he's fine, but like you just got to think, he's been feeling some of the wear and tear of having to do so much, having so much put on his shoulders that, you know, like you're going to want to make life difficult for him. And so, but I do think that the way the Bills win this game is they start fast. They get the ball to so many different guys. They get some mismatches against the Broncos linebackers. That's how the Bills win on the offensive side. And then defensively, if the Broncos just have these periods where, look, they've done this, right, where they go 3 and out like 3 times in a row, then they'll have like a really great drive where it feels like they figured something out, score a touchdown. That's how they've won. But if they have these long periods where they just can't get anything going, they can't stay on the field, they don't have that rhythm, that's the path for victory for the Bills. And so the Broncos just have to play more consistent football where they're not going 3 and out. They're having some drives. Even if it leads to a punt, at least you're giving your defense a breather here. That's just going to be important. And I just think that this game, there's so many ways that this can play out, you know, and I just think that the Broncos are going to have to, they can win, obviously. They're the number 1 seed. They've got an amazing defense. They forced those turnovers against the Chargers. I think that you could see them doing that in this game. There's a path to victory here, but they're going to have to play their best football, and we just haven't seen that in a while. If they come out hot and the stadium's rocking and they're really rolling and it feels like they get like a 10-0 lead or something like that, I think they're going to win this game if they can do that. But if this is tight and you're going 3 and out a bunch and it's late in the game and Josh has a ball, you feel good about that for the Bills. That's how the Broncos lose the game. We're going to know what kind of game this is early, and we're going to know what the field is like. And I think that that's going to let you know what's going to happen in this game. We'll see. It could be a situation where it's like, hello, this is playoff Bo Nix, and you're ready. He's arrived on the scene. He kicks Josh Allen out of the playoffs and advances to a championship game. That could be his, hey, this could be his moment. And so I heard this a couple of weeks ago. Somebody said you get paid to play in the regular season and you make a name for yourself. You build your legacy in the playoffs. And, hey, they say pressure is privilege. When you're in these tight games, that's how you build a name for yourself. And we're going to know what this team's made out of. We're going to know, are they early? Have they arrived early and they're still not quite ready? Yeah, they're the number 1 seed, but they're still not quite ready. We'll know after this game. Okay? They win this game, they're for real. They could beat anybody. They could go to the Super Bowl and beat the Seahawks or whoever comes out of the NFC. We're going to know. And that's what's exciting about this game. So we'll know more about this Broncos team. I can't believe we're still saying that at this point, but we're going to know. And they got to lay it all out on the line. They're going to put their cards down. And if you got the better hand, man, I sound like Nick here. I'm coming up with these crazy metaphors, but you're going to know. And so we'll see what happens, man. But regardless, it's been an amazing season. The atmosphere on Saturday is going to be amazing. And there's nothing quite like a playoff game at Mile High. And so I'm just pumped to see what it's like. And it's been so exciting seeing the whole city get behind this team. And so Whatever happens, happens. I don't think it's really a revenge game. I asked Nick that early there. Last year, I felt like the Broncos were playing with house money, and they were happy to be in the playoffs, happy to be just there. And the fact that they lost so big against Buffalo, I don't think that was a big deal. I don't think that's a chip on their shoulder this year facing the Bills again. But I do think that they know that the Bills are a team that's been there, and so if you want to get there yourself, why not knock off a big Bills team here? And so that's what I think the matchup is like. I don't know how much Josh still thinks about John Elway passing on him. I know John with Shannon Sharp said, hey, that's still my biggest regret here is passing on Josh Allen. Biggest mistake that he made as a GM. I think that Josh is probably over that. Maybe that was a factor last year, but I just don't think he thinks too much about that. And you certainly, all the things he's accomplished in his career, being the MVP and everything, still waiting on that championship. But I hope that he still doesn't feel that grudge against the Broncos all these years later. So we'll see, though. You never know. Players will do anything to find an edge to get that motivation. We saw that with The Last Dance, right, with Michael Jordan, just using anything to get that edge to just push yourself. So maybe that is still the case, and you both sides feel like this is sort of a rivalry game. But to me, it doesn't feel like that. I'm curious, Stu, what do you think? You think that this feels like that? I just don't know. So anyway, this is what I'm going to be drinking on Saturday here. This is Heaven Hill bottled in bond. This bourbon is 7 years old. A long time ago, Heaven Hill used to sell a much cheaper bourbon that was aged 6 years. And I think that one was like under $20. This one I found for 40. It's 50% alcohol, so 100 proof here. And Heaven Hill, obviously, just a huge distillery. Elijah Craig coming out of there, which is one of my favorites. This is bottled in bond here, and it's it pays tribute to the earliest days of the distillery when in 1939 it released this bourbon here. So let's get into this. I have not tried this. I got to open this cap up here. Easy cap. I like that. Easy to just pull that off, and a cork top here. I believe the cheaper one a long time ago was a screw cap. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this here. Again, this is Heaven Hill bottled in bond, aged 7 years. Testing this neat here. The mash bill is online, 78% corn, 12% malted barley, 10% rye. So I think you're expecting this to be a little bit sweeter. Nose is not like really a powerful nose. It's sort of a subtle, maybe like a little bit of caramel, a little bit of oak maybe, but not a super big nose. Spice actually forward. Oak, maybe that's just the fact that it's been aged 7 years. A little bit of spice, then it dissipates, and then you're getting some butterscotch. A little bit sweeter there. Yeah, that's nice. Definitely spicier than I thought it was going to be. But it hits you a little bit of cinnamon there, a little bit of that oakiness, and then it mellows out into like a medium finish, I would say. Ends on a little bit of a sweeter note. Yeah, that's pretty good, I think. Pretty good. Louisville, Kentucky, bottled in bond, Heaven Hill, big name in bourbon. I got this one for about $40, and yeah, that's enjoyable. I think I'd drink that on the rocks. At that price point, that's pretty good. I think. Yeah, that tastes pretty good. Spicy, and then ends on a sort of a sweeter note. And I think that I drink that on the rocks. But if you're looking to try something a little bit, and you haven't tried this one, for whatever reason, this is a huge bottle in bourbon. I just haven't ever gotten to this. And family owned since 1935. I like the bottle. The cork didn't have like a huge pop. I like that sound. I want that sound. It just kind of came out. But yeah, this is a classic sort of Kentucky bourbon, and I'd give it a try. I'd give it a try. Again, nobody pays me to review these. I pay for these bottles myself, and yeah, that's an enjoyable one. So I'll be enjoying that on Saturday. We'll see if it's celebratory or if it's necessary. We'll have to see. But look, I think if you're the Broncos, you're just thinking, look, if we want to win a Super Bowl, why not just take on these teams? Maybe you're rooting for the Steelers or whatever. I think you're like, hey, well, let's take on Buffalo and see what we're made out of. And hey, it's time to put up or shut up. So excited to see what happens. So if you like the program, please like and subscribe. I know, Nick was saying even that, hey, you might not like to hear what he has to say, but he's bringing his genuine thought, not just what you want to hear. And I appreciate that, because I think in media nowadays, so much stuff is just put out there to because fans are going to like it. And so you just put that kind of stuff out. And instead, I want this program to really be honest, genuine conversations about what we see on the field. And that means some weeks it's going to be really positive, and sometimes it's not going to be exactly what you want to hear. But I think that at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for. You want honest coverage. And I think that we'll see what happens here. If Nick's right, then the Broncos are going to have to regroup and see how they can build. No more Russell Wilson on the paybook. So the Broncos certainly are going to have a productive offseason, but you don't really want to talk about that right now. What you want to be talking about is an AFC championship and matchup, and how they're going to either face the Patriots or Texans. So we'll see what happens, and I hope that you enjoyed the program. And leave a comment. If you hate what he said, let me know why. If you agree with Nick, let me know why. But one thing's for sure, I think that this is going to be a heck of a football game. So the wild card weekend was an outstanding weekend of football, and I think we're going to see that here too. Here's what I'm taking in the other games. I'm taking the Patriots at home against the Texans. I'm taking the Rams on the road against the Bears, and I'm taking the Seahawks against the 49ers. That should be a great game, but those are the teams I'm taking. Leave your predictions below as well. But that is going to do it for us. Looking forward to this weekend of football. Thank you so much for checking out the program. For Broncos and Bourbon, I am Phil Milani.